Let me ask you something. Have you ever thought that what you see, what you remember, what you experience might not be the whole story? Okay, let's dive right in because your brain can and does trick you every single day, and you probably don't even realize it.
We love to think of our brain as this perfect, high definition camera, just recording everything exactly as it happens. But that's not really how it works. A way better way to think about it, like you see here, is that your brain is an editor, a really, really active one, constantly working behind the scenes. And this is the absolute key. It's not just sitting back and letting information roll in. Nope. It's actively interpreting, it's editing, it's filling in the blanks, all to create a story about the world that makes sense to you. And that editing process, that's exactly why what we perceive isn't always 100% real. So, here's what we're going to do. We're going to break down how this all works. First, we'll look at the tricks of perception. Then, we'll get into the weirdness of memory. After that, we'll see how the brain fills in the gaps. And finally, we'll uncover how this whole thing is actually your hidden superpower. All right, let's start with our number one sense, our sight. It turns out, seeing isn't always believing, not by a long shot.
And you know what the best proof of this is? Optical illusions. We've all seen them. But here's the crazy part. When you look at an optical illusion, your eyes are sending the right information to your brain. The trick, the illusion itself, that's not happening in your eyes. It's happening in your head.
So, why does our brain get it wrong? Well, it all comes down to being efficient. Your brain uses these little mental shortcuts it's learned over your entire life to process stuff super fast. And most of the time, that's great. But sometimes, those shortcuts lead to some really cool misinterpretations, making us see things that aren't actually there. Okay, so that's what we see. Now let's talk about what we remember, because this is where things get really interesting. It's time to meet the unreliable narrator that lives inside all of our heads. This is probably one of the biggest myths about how our minds work. We think memory is like hitting play on a video file, right? Wrong. It's not a replay. As this quote says, it's a rebuild. Every single time you remember something, your brain is actually reconstructing that memory from scratch. And this just lays it out so perfectly. On the left, that's how memory feels to us, like a perfect recording. But on the right, that's what's actually happening in our brains, an active reconstruction. And because it's being rebuilt, it's open to being changed, to being influenced, even to being flat out wrong. And this has huge, real-world consequences. Just think about eyewitness testimony. In a super stressful situation, your brain is focused on one thing: survival. It's not trying to memorize the little details. So later, it just fills in those gaps with what it assumes was there. And get this, a person can be totally 100% confident in that memory, even when parts of it were invented by their own brain. So just how deep does this editing process go? Well, it's not just for big memories. It's happening all the time, automatically, filling in the gaps of your reality second by second. You ever get déjà vu? That super weird, almost spooky feeling that you've been in that exact moment before? Well, it's probably not a peek into a past life. More likely, it's just a tiny little glitch in your brain's filing system, a timing error as it processes a new memory. Think of it like this. A brand new experience comes in, but your brain accidentally puts the "I've seen this before" stamp on it before it even files it away. And this image really captures that strange, swirling feeling, doesn't it, when something new feels uncannily old? Okay, check this out. Here's an example that is happening to you right now. You literally have a blind spot in each eye where your optic nerve is. So why don't you see two big black holes in your vision all day? Because your brain just takes what's around the spot and paints right over the gap. You are, in a very real way, hallucinating parts of your vision constantly, and you never even notice. So at this point, it sounds like our brains are just big fat liars, right? But hold on. What if we reframe this whole thing? What if all this editing isn't a flaw? What if it's actually a superpower? See, the brain's goal here isn't to trick you. It's to be efficient. It's a prediction machine. It has to deal with a ridiculous amount of information every second, so it makes educated guesses to smooth things out and save you a ton of time and energy. And honestly, it works almost perfectly. So here's the real power in all this. Just knowing how your brain works gives you a huge advantage. It lets you question what you see, it helps you think more critically, and it helps you remember that reality is always, always more complex than it first looks. This isn't some bug in our system that needs to be fixed. It's the very architecture of how we experience the world. It's just how we're built.
So I'll just leave you with this final thought. Now that you know your brain is an active editor, that it's constantly shaping what you see and what you remember, what's the first thing you're going to question?